Episode 39 of the On the Air podcast. We had Sam Levitt on a couple weeks ago. And a couple weeks later, we have his old broadcast partner now with Fox. He's been with the SEC network. He's been with ESPN. He's bounced around minor league baseball. Hi, Kevin Fitzgerald. How are you?
Aiden, good to have you on. Hopefully this can be like the follow-up act to what I'm sure was a very entertaining episode with my good friend Sam Levitt. We were just talking about it a few moments ago. We go way back to our Cape Cod Baseball League days, and I just said to you, I have to get it kind of secondhand. I'm not on TikTok myself, so sometimes I have to get some of the theater that Sam throws out onto TikTok from either from him or others. And but yeah, that's my good buddy.
I just downloaded it the other day. I full disclosure, I actually didn't start watching it like regularly. Like I'd seen some stuff that my friends had done, but I hadn't started actually watching those videos until I had Sam on. And then I downloaded the app and I started scrolling through and I was like, oh my God, these are very, very cool. I don't know if I'm ever going to be creative enough and artsy enough to be able to do one of those, but it's at least fun to go through and watch his stuff and other people's stuff on there.
Yeah, I watched that Social Dilemma documentary on Netflix, and when you open up one of those apps like Instagram or TikTok, you go, "Oh, okay, that's why I just lost the last 20 minutes of my life. That will not come back to me." So, yeah, I understand the allure of it.
Yeah, TikTok is definitely. I'm on Instagram. I'm on social media: Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. TikTok is absolutely where you can lose the most time. You could just go through half an hour and just not know it.
No question.
All right, so let's get in. I like to start with kind of the beginning of your career. Were you one of the guys that were you a guy who knew you were going to be a broadcaster from a very young age? I know you went to Syracuse, so obviously you knew at some point before college, but did you know from a very young age that you were going to be a broadcaster?
I was always interested in it. I always answered that way. Like, do you remember the old College Board, if that thing still even exists, the website?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's still a tool for folks
I used that applying to school last year.
There we go. So it stood the test of time.
You're not that old.
I recalled glancing, that was on my checklist. I would always click that little drop down and see if the schools that I was now in Syracuse is obviously we understand the history when it comes to just the broadcasting legacy at a school like Syracuse. But I would always check that little drop down box to make sure the schools that I was scanning or looking at or was interested in applying to, that they had a communications department at a minimum. You know, they had some sort of representation on campus as it relates to student radio or so on and so forth. So that was always on my list. I mean, Syracuse was at the top from that standpoint because you know the history going in. I'm telling you, I remember everybody loves the Super Bowl. It's a holiday. It should be a national holiday. I always contended the Monday after the Super Bowl, we should not have, we probably shouldn't have had to go to school the next day. That was always my contention as an elementary school and teenager. But I remember like the week leading up to the Super Bowl, ESPN Classic, we're on our subject of are these things defunct or not? That might be defunct. But on ESPN Classic, they would run these 30-minute Super Bowl NFL Films recaps of all of them. It was like a marathon leading up to the Super Bowl. I loved it. I was always watching them. And NFL Films, it so artfully intertwines the sounds of the game, the effects of the game, the crowd, the passion of the game with the call of the game. What were people saying? What were the broadcasters? How were they describing the action? What were some of the sound bites leading up to the game? I was always enamored by that. It was like, it was a game perfectly crafted, perfectly described. And that always stood out to me. And I think that was the genesis of me going, who are some of these voices? Are they called? Okay, these are broadcasters. They're calling the game. And so then naturally I would mimic it when I could. I would play video games. And so like I would, my parents would joke, they would like open up the door to the basement where my gaming system was. And they'd hear me, I'm like 3rd down and 10. So I would do that. I just thought it was fun. I thought it was neat to almost mimic just something that I thought was really neat. I thought that was really cool, just how a game is presented. Always was a huge sports fan, so that that only accelerated it. So that was my beginnings. And then I was looking at, hey, I what if I want to do communications? I really hadn't jumped in, if you will, or gotten my feet wet with on the air work when I was in high school, for example. So I just wondered, is this maybe, would I be good? So on and so forth. The first week, when I enroll at Syracuse, my first week on campus, I run into someone who he was presenting, he was doing a presentation about his senior capstone, and it was at ESPN. And I talked to him about, how did you get a job or an internship with ESPN, and what did you do? And we discussed our interests, and he just goes, you got to go to the campus radio station, like right now. You've got to go to W8R. You got to go to WJPZ, like just get behind the mic, exercise that. Trust me, it'll be the, one of the best things you do. And it ultimately was. That was Eric Elkin, who was a great news reporter and sports reporter I believe he's still in El Paso, Texas. So I always had the itch, I always had the interest. Once I got behind the mic, like you right there, I definitely, you fall in love with it. No question. It's very cliche to say, but it was fun. I mean, it was a nice outlet. I love sports. In college, I kind of got out of my shy shell and everything like that. And I thought that, being behind the mic and just being able to have some fun, I've always been kind of like a naturally fun or humorous person. So that was a way to really exercise that. So there was always this interest, just basically based on consumption. We all do it. We all watch SportsCenter. We all watch the Super Bowl. We all watch wherever you are, your favorite basketball team or football team. So it was always there. Once I got to Syracuse, that was when the cat was let out of the bag.
I find it funny that you didn't know when you first got there, you didn't know about WAER going in, because at this point it's kind of unheard of. If you're going to the Newhouse school, that's like the first thing they'll tell you about the station and WAER.
And I knew about it. I started as a sport management major. I actually started broad. I said, maybe you start here. And I always said to myself, if I want to transfer in, let's say, and do the communications thing specifically, let's do it. So I think I always knew. And then, but quite literally, it was that first week, and I had someone give me the nudge and say, like, what are you waiting for? Get over there right now. And again, it was just, totally, I understood which way I was going after that, no doubt.
Who were some of the big guys that were in your class? I know every Syracuse guy we've had on the pod, we've had a decent amount. Every Syracuse guy, I always ask them, who were the big guys in your class that we would know of now?
Heck, my first year, these two, wildly talented, individuals they were in their senior year. So they were kind of outgoing, but Mike Cousins, Kevin Brown, Heather Prusak was my grade. She's a phenomenal reporter in Buffalo, and that's her hometown too. Bill Spalding, who oh, by the way, if you remember, watching the 100-meter dash and all the Olympic events from this summer for NBC, he called those. So those were some of the folks that I was there with. But yeah, Aiden, I think you bring up a good point. It's an interesting lens to look at it through, because you do walk. I think there is something to say about prestige. There really is. It's like I was just listening to a show earlier about, let's say you're a college football player. You're faced with this decision. Do I want to go to a Notre Dame? You could tell I'm a Notre Dame fan because I began with them. A Notre Dame, an Alabama. Do I want to go to the place with this incredible amount of prestige? Do I want to go to the place where I can maybe make a name for myself immediately, or maybe help a program rebound? There's always that decision. I can only speak to basically the former example, just going to Syracuse. I can firmly contend, just being in that environment, being in an atmosphere where, Ian Eagle's name is up on the walls and Mike Tirico's name is there, and their pictures and their images. The bar is abundantly set, is very clearly set where it is. And I believe we all, very much took a great pride in knowing you got to clear that bar, or what will you do to help raise it? I think every one of us would say that, or a lot of folks that go to Syracuse or work at, it doesn't even have to be W8ER or WJPZ or the campus radio station as well, TV station in Citrus TV. It can be all of those outlets, but you just see what some of the prior folks that came before you were able to accomplish. And I always thought that brought out the best in us. So, going in, I think you get a clear indication there then about, hey, this field can be competitive. You've got to stay creative. You've got to stay innovative. You've got to work hard, like in any industry. But I think just seeing that there, I always thought it inspired us. And it certainly inspired me. I thought it brought out the best in us. I always say that. It was like a bar was set. What were you going to do to raise it? And I think so. I think you not only learn how can I be a better broadcaster, but you learn how to be a better professional as well. I mean, we were 18 to 22-year-olds. It was a professional setting. Sure, we were students, but we thought we knew what we were doing in sometimes good ways, sometimes bad ways. But I thought that responsibility is invaluable, and I still claim that to this day, no question.
I know that you had worked on the Cape with Sam Levitt. Was there anybody else that was really good that was out there that we would know?
Well, I mean, she is she's no longer in broadcasting, but the most talented videographer, video production manager in college sports, Susie Milano over at UCLA. She was our she did our side reporting and field side reporting and writing. At the time, I mentioned a couple of those other guys, like Mike Cousins was there. John Nolan, who's an incredibly talented broadcaster. Mike Monaco, who does Mike's everywhere. He does the Red Sox, ESPN. I think we overlapped for a year. Megan O'Brien, we're talking about, she's with the WWE, extremely talented reporter. So it is neat. I think that ties into my prior point. It's just it's like this cauldron of I don't want, is elite the right word? Maybe, but I think we all were very determined. We all had aspirations, no doubt about it. We all had some lofty aspirations, and we were committed to doing it. So being in that environment just further sharpens you, no question. So I think we all, we weren't running away from responsibility or bettering ourselves. We all wanted that. That was a great place to, at Syracuse, for example, there's something already established. There's a system there, as I've already alluded to. But on the Cape, like Sam and I, we're driving around the Cape trying to find the headsets and trying to find a wire because this thing's broken, and we had to create something. This was kind of it was only we were there eight years ago, so it's not like it's the prehistoric era or something like that. But things have become way more sophisticated. Like we're doing live streams, but we created something that was ours. I think that gave us a great deal of, especially at that part in our careers, confidence. Sam says this. I think you trace a lot back to that time too, about in terms of who you are and what you've accomplished, and your innovative nature, your creative nature. So we installed a pregame show. We were doing the interviews that had never really been done before for the team we worked for, and that was Orleans Firebirds. They're right at the end of the Cape. Beautiful town. It's just a fantastic place to be for a couple of summers. So we were able to create something. We were able to kind of exercise that creative side that I think you've got it. You have to keep exercising that in whatever form or fashion. So, maybe that's TikTok, like right now, maybe that's creating this TikTok alter ego. Although in Sam's case, I think it's just him. There is no alter ego. So that was another great place. Really talented people. Plus you're watching the best baseball. There's something to that as well. The best baseball players, the best college baseball players went to the Cape. There was a desire to be there. So we saw great baseball. We saw a great product. Now you exhumed some of this work that I'm referencing now. I would, I would run for the hills. I wouldn't want to listen to this stuff now, but I think at the time we just built some confidence. We built up, our ability to put a broadcast together, and a commitment to it, with interviews, with pregame, with the show. So yeah, it was a lot of, and you make mistakes too. Like, I think we had like the microphone at one point right next to, like, our crowd mic was right next to fans, and like this little toddler comes up and starts talking. She just goes like goo goo gaga onto the mic. So you make mistakes. Like, all right, let's find a better place for this crowd mic. Let's find a better way to do this interview. Let's find a better way to call the game. That's the other thing too, is hitting your peers and your mentors and going, what did you like? What can I do better? So just look, I loved everything about my time there. You work with talented people, and you improve. It's training camp. It's training camp for broadcasters.
So Orleans has now produced 2 Jim Nantz Award winners, with Scotty Gaines, who was on the pod bunch of episodes ago, and now Kevin Fitzgerald. It's what is it about that franchise that just produces championship broadcasters?
I know. I didn't see the Orleans press release when Scotty won the award a couple of years ago. I think they're now a little tardy on that. I'm only kidding, but no, and that's, hey, you're kind to reference that. I appreciate that. I won that when I was leaving school. But Scotty, there you go, another guy. I remember watching some of his work. Fun, creative, witty. I just think you can't force these things, but this makes me think of this point. I think personality, more than ever, means a lot more. Maybe that, the personality stock, I think maybe that price has risen perhaps over the last few years. I do think that, because, we're talking about all these digital platforms, and I think our attention is, where does our attention go, and what are we consumed with? I think now more than ever, as it relates to sports media, we're consumed with the unconventional. I mean, I'll admit, I had Peyton and Eli on the last couple of weeks, and it was fun. And I'm probably going back. Maybe am I going to spend the whole Monday night watching them, or I'll flip back and forth? But I really appreciated it. So, like Scotty, I think he's personable, and he tries hard and witty and everything. And so, how can we be a little outside the box? This past year, I feel really strongly about this past year, just from my side of things. I thought it was a really fun year, and strange to say, because we were remote. Like my live from home studio kit that we use for ESPN, our remote shows, is like around the corner over there. So we weren't on site, but I don't know. I think I allowed myself to maybe just kind of approach things with more of my natural, like, buoyance and humor and things. I thought we turned in a good product. So I think when you can do that, when there's not maybe a fear to let the personality shine a little bit, it's not about us, but I think when there's less fear or maybe anxiety about, like, letting your personality shine a little bit, the better you can be, and that means the better your broadcast can be as well. That also goes back to a fundamental principle of have a conversation on the air. I mean, just be conversational. Scotty is, Sam is relatable. I think what the viewer likes is relatable. Can we be relatable in our presentation for the viewer? Because at the end of the day, like, we serve, we're there to inform and entertain as well the viewer. I think that's a fairly common philosophy, inform and entertain. But it's something that's, like, at the top of my list, no question.
How do you bring that into your broadcasts? I know Sam has TikTok. Scotty used to do play-by-play. He doesn't so much anymore. He's mostly with the studio work. But how do you bring that into your play-by-play and into your games?
It's in the preparation, but it's also just like evolving your preparation, if you will. Like, I've got a section of my notes. So sure, I've got my chart. I probably should have grabbed one. I'll grab one in a second, like what my chart looks like. But I have an entirely separate Word doc that I have for every broadcast. And that's just, it really becomes like my starting point where I will just like a little season recap about each team. Let's say I'll jot down a few points there first and foremost. It's always been a nice place for me to just get some things there. And then I almost transfer it to a chart, maybe a little time consuming, but I've kind of got a good system here. But, I have a section on there where if there are things I know, like you got to plan ahead. If there's one thing I think is important, you can't just roll up and hop out of the car and go. Like you'll be competent, sure, but I think if you want to take it to another level, I've got a section where, I'll have a couple like bullet points, and sometimes they're questions, sometimes they're comments for my analyst, the person I'm working with. Maybe something that he or she sent out on Twitter that week that was funny. Maybe I'll reference it. Or if it's just a more simplistic or straightforward question. So having I'm writing that the week leading up to a game. Heck, I mean, current events, it's just having an awareness and referencing, everybody's going to be tripping over themselves to make the Najee Harris reference this week, the first time we see a stiff arm, right? So I think it's just being aware and then, just, let your imagine, easier said than done. But I think if you have the opportunity to let your imagination run wild a little bit, then you can drop in a reference here, reference there. I like to watch my friend Jason Benetti because he's the funniest man on television. He's obviously one of them. So yeah, I think personally, I watch Curb Your I don't know. I've always liked funny shows. So yeah, I think maybe I'm just more inclined to view things through a certain prism. And so I think that's how you allow yourself to do it. You got to open yourself up to maybe more than what you just what you kind of do from a standard preparation standpoint. So yeah, I'll have a section of like references, I label it references. Just sometimes they're just, again, common things that happen during the week. Things around college basketball, for example, or college football. But yeah, some of them will be maybe a reference to something that happened this week. I think it's relatable. We all saw it. We all scrolled through it on Twitter on Sunday. We saw that stiff arm. So that's probably a way to do it is just to, again, be aware, think through just a different, look through different prism, and then maybe you get to that point.
Do you feel like that sets you apart from the other guys? Obviously, you work at two of the biggest sports networks, not just in the country, but in the world, with Fox and ESPN. There's obviously a need to separate yourself from the other talent so that you can continue to get big time assignments. Do you feel like those kind of things help you set yourself ahead of the pack when the pack is so big?
Boy, you're kind of say ahead of the pack, man. I'm just trying to stay in the race, just trying to run this marathon. But maybe, but also I'm telling you, I think when we operate most effectively, or maybe our mind is freshest, if you will, and we're operating. Basically, what I'm trying to say is we feel good about the work that we're turning in, the work that we do, is when we're just focused on, like the separation thing. I know I think awareness is important. You got to, if you're in the 9 hole for an entire season, you're like, why am I in the 9? It's like, come on, like, dude, you're hitting 210. I mean, what do you mean? Why? So I think awareness is important, but I just think when you're kind of focused on your race, kind of that run your race thing, I subscribe to that big time. I think when you're kind of focused on your routine, your formula. Like I'm listening to JJ Redick's retirement podcast the other day, and like the phrase that he uses really stood out to me. He goes like, my routine was sacred. So you really got to take your routine seriously, because then, yes, I think like naturally you'll find maybe a way to to stand out a little bit. And I don't think the goal should be to stand out. Like you got to be you. You got to be you at the end of the day. So be yourself. So yeah, maybe in a certain way, but I think the times that I've felt just the most confident or comfortable or whatever in my career, the times when you're kind of doing your thing, you're staying focused, you respect your routine, you're letting your creativity, you're feeding that, you're feeding that side as well. But yeah, so I don't know. I wouldn't be so consumed with the trying to stand out. I think naturally it happens if you can put in some good work, focus on you. And that comparison thing, that'll kill you. I mean, that will really cripple you. And again, it's also understanding like this a long career, long marathon. So like that this whole trust the process thing, which has taken on a life of its own with the Sixers and Embiid kind of hijacking it. But it is so true. I mean, it is absolutely true. So when you trust what you're now, hey, can you look for ways to evolve and retool it? Of course, that's critical as well. That's where the awareness thing comes in. But be you, and if you got a good system in place, I think you standing out will come naturally, and you'll least expect it.
You host a podcast too, right? I was researching a little bit. You host a podcast where you're interviewing all kinds of different athletes and coaches, right?
I'm looking for a sponsor too. So if there's any large corporations that are listening in or lending an ear to Aidens Pod, I'm up for any collaboration. I do. This was it has been fun little passion project. I don't know. Again, another example of how else can you continue to evolve or just add a little more, add some responsibility. And I mean, it's fun too. I'm sure you get a great deal of kind of fulfillment out of this as well.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. So it was last summer. It was last summer during the pandemic. And, I always, I've referenced a couple podcasts already. I love the conversation style podcast. I love the interview. I like interviewing like you. It's fun. I liked, I think I always liked trying to frame questions or, over the years, you talk to coaches and players, and we're so fortunate to get to do that. I think I always enjoyed trying to, ask something out of left field or something a little quirky or just something that they haven't, that actually ties back to a point about maybe the standing out thing, but just something that would, produce this thought-provoking response. Because hey, at the end of the day, let's do our job to the best of our ability. So I over time, you naturally understand that, or I said to myself, maybe I do this. This would be a fun way to do it. Is the interview thing, and I like that. I like the deep dive stuff, and I'm like my analyst. His name is Dane Bradshaw. He played at Tennessee, awesome career. We're talking about a captain. He's beloved in Knoxville and the SEC. We've been fortunate to work together for a few years. And like he'll always joke. He's like, here's my last X's and O's, Kevin, and here's Kevin with all his crazy ones or something. So I think I've just enjoyed asking the why, the how, like some of the deeper level stuff. And I would always think, I got like a stack of notebooks of notes from over the years. And sometimes in a 2-hour show, you don't nearly scratch the surface, or you don't nearly have the ability to bring in all of these great anecdotes or stories or just philosophies that these coaches, these players shared. So yeah, I just said, hey, it's the middle of the pandemic. It was July last year. And I'm like, I got to do something. I need to do something that feels broadcasting related. So, I talked to a couple of folks, and I asked a good buddy of mine who's in video, hey, can you mind making a podcast, icon cover art for me, and let's do this. So I started to consume podcasts more and more the last couple of years anyway, and it's fun. So yeah, it's an interview show, and again, it's something that you're at the reins, or you're at the wheel of this. I'm at the wheel of that, so you can kind of take it in any direction. It becomes your creative platform. So it's been a lot of fun, and I've kind of kept it to college sports and college basketball and college football and coaches and players and former NBA guys. That's definitely up my alley. So hey, and I thank you. I've got a bunch of friends and family. They listen to it, and so I thank everybody for listening to this thing. So hey, it's more of, we'll see how it goes. I'm going to keep doing it. I like it. I think it's something that's fun. I think it's something that's good to produce. It keeps you sharp. Like, you just want to keep doing things that keep you sharp. So yeah, it's been a nice little like summer project the last couple of years, and look, hey, if you've got the creative bone in your body, I mean, yeah, just try new things, pull the trigger on something new, see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, I started this for a couple of, selfishly, because I wanted to meet guys like you and some of the bigger guys in the industry, make those connections. But also, you gotta, I could never, I'm about to go do a high school football broadcast in a couple of hours. We're recording this on a Friday. It'll be released in like a week, but I'm about to go do a high school football broadcast. I could never be this loose, and I'll make jokes. I love having conversations like that, especially during baseball broadcasts, but I would never have the chance to go to be this loose and this personal for a whole hour on a broadcast. And I think that's kind of one of the beauties of podcasts. We can go as long as we want. We can get loose. We're just two people talking.
It's fun. I mean, look, it's a way to, what did I say before? Conversational. That is the nature of this platform is conversational. I mean, it really becomes like we all, we're all human. We want details. We gossip. We do all that stuff by nature, some more than others, unfortunately. So the podcast is just a great peek behind the curtain. You're like, somebody said, I think I was talking to Amanda Gifford. She works in the talent office at ESPN, talking consummate professional, been with ESPN for a long time, super talented. But I love the way she phrased it once. She goes, I mean, it's just like you're eavesdropping. It's like you got your headphones in, you're on the plane or train, or maybe you're just working out, and you're kind of eavesdropping in on a conversation. So again, adapt, right? Like evolve. You listen to podcasts, and you hear the advertising. Again, it's just, this is a new player I say new. I mean, it's obviously been around for years, but I think it's accelerated. I mean, if we're talking about just a proliferation of podcasting and the consumption of it, the last 4 years, I think it's definitely spiked. So, and you've seen folks, increase the, a weekly episode turns into 3 a week for certain shows. So there's definitely been this proliferation. I think it's a great platform. And again, it's a great way to I like to use the word exercise. I mean, you really that's why we go back to that point about say yes to everything, because you're going to exercise all sorts of broadcasting chops, whether that's a sport, whether it's calling a new sport, whether it's, doing something different in terms of the platform. I'm a play-by-play. Well, no, but I've never podcasted. I've never reported. You'll exercise. You try something out, and you never know where it can grow, what it can lead to, what doors it can open. And yeah, I think this is it's a nice skill to have too. It's being conversational, being personable, relatable, Q&A. That stuff I think helps. It can help someone on the air too. It's looking at something through a different lens. So I have it, typically I would speak to Buzz Williams for 15 minutes after shoot around, right? Now I have a full hour with him. Maybe I come up with a few questions or ways of framing things or the way I prepared for this. And I go, wait a second, I'm going to do that before a game too. Or, again, I think it exposes you to new ways to do things, which permeate throughout your professional scope, I think.
So I had mentioned the connection building. You started in minor league baseball. How did you end up at the mothership and at Fox? What was the process from graduating college to moving into minor league baseball and then starting to get these network jobs?
Man, there are a few people that I point to. First off, probably like you, ESPN was that was our Bible. Like it was Saturday morning, sports, or game day. Saturday morning, it was Sports Center before my rec basketball game. Or, you would watch Notre Dame and Michigan was on ESPN, and during the week, and we all, we wanted to, we were curious. We wanted to know. So we were always watching Sports Center. We're watching Big Monday. We're watching the big game, whether it's Monday Night Football, previously Sunday night, when ESPN had the rights to that. And so I mentioned these names, a couple of these names already, like Jason Benetti, Mike Cousins. These two, I'm lucky to call them, friends, and their impact on my career is immense. I mean, I'll try to put it into words right now, but they were just always helpful. They're always there to and I'd seen their path. I saw their journey, what they did to obviously, get in the door at ESPN, and they've both gone on to some huge things with the network. So I think I just had like something I was exposed to, that path. And I was fortunate to connect with, his name is Chris Farrow. He's no longer with ESPN, but I probably got his email just through a colleague, a contact of mine, and someone probably said, reach out to him, establish a relationship. I mean, we started emailing when I was in school, probably my last year in school, and had some work I wanted to share with him that I was proud of. And I always framed it from that perspective. And you would love to get your thoughts on this, would love to hear what you liked or disliked, what can improve. And he was very kind to do that. So that happened a few times. He would watch my work. He would offer up some perspective. We stayed in touch. I got a chance to meet him in person. It's also, this strategy is really important here. I think if anybody has a goal or something that they're trying to obtain or accomplish in their career, it's kind of having a strategy. So I remember reaching out to him. I was going to be near Charlotte, where he was based, and so would love to come by and maybe say hello if you got a minute, meet you in person. Would love to introduce myself in person. And so we did, and he's a big UConn basketball fan. I remember we traded some messages about that. So just slowly built up a relationship. And I think these have to, I think the key is just, they got to be authentic. And that was shared to me early on. It's like anything. I mean, your best friends, the best relationships in your life are the ones that are authentic, the ones that, are genuine. The two of you like each other. So, I think we kind of connected, and I'll never forget. I mean, this was October of, would have been 2015. I was trying to determine, like, what am I going to do? I did a season of Vermont women's basketball. Fantastic. Love Burlington. Great winter up there. I was like, should I go back up? Am I going to do another season? What do I have kind of lined up here? And here's Chris Farrow, pops up on my phone, and I didn't even say hello. Chris he gets right to it. He's like, all right, I got a couple games. You're going to be here. You're going to do this Boston College game. Then I'm going to get you on this night. Okay, you're good, right? You're good for these. And like, I'm trying to just get off this call before he realizes, this mistake he made. He's hiring this 23-year-old to jump in and. But I felt confident. I most definitely felt confident that I could handle the job. I think that was the other key as well. I felt very confident that I could do it. I felt confident in myself. Of course, had no question the perspective of let's keep getting better. But I knew what I was basically kind of pitching myself for indirectly, I knew I could handle. And I think he got that sense as well. So yeah, the first game I ever did was Boston College, Penn State. And, I might've did a dozen games just on a freelance basis, and I'm just invoicing him. And yeah, I mean, it turned into, that grew the next year, and the college basketball package grew the following year, and it grew. So, I felt, trust and belief that it was going to continue to grow. And so here we are today. But it was just understanding, again, also reaching out to folks and being strategic, but try to, make sure you realize who's in your corner or not, or who can be the advocate. I thought, I got the sense that Chris would want to, he wanted to be an advocate. He wanted to be someone, and we talked about that later on, years down the road. He was like, I really wanted to give you an opportunity. So just to hear that meant a lot. But it's all about, it's timing. I mean, it is timing too. Like look, I'll say this, this field has incredibly talented broadcasters. I believe in myself. That was a timing thing. I mean, he was looking to give somebody an opportunity. So I very much lucked out there, and I recognize that often. Now, I took advantage of the opportunity that I had, and I built it to what it is, and I feel great about that. But I certainly understand this stuff is timing. This stuff is very much timing. And so there's been a lot of times where I say it to myself over the years, you know, could this have gone that way, this way, so on and so forth. It's all based on timing. That's why I think we all love this. So you almost have to remind yourself of that year after year. You don't want to get discouraged by not getting this job, not getting that opportunity, finishing, third for that. I didn't get this, I didn't get that. I think if we reflect back on our love for what we do and we trust our processes, then, that the timing is going to work out in due time. No question.
Last question, then I'll get to my final few that I ask everybody. You mentioned your prep. I know that when you were up in Vermont, you had worked for some smaller. Okay. So Kevin's going to go get his boards and we'll have a little bit of awkward dead air. Oh, that's all right. He moved fast enough.
Actually, poor planning. I should have had this ready to go.
So you had worked smaller stuff with when you were up in Burlington, when you were up in Vermont. What is the difference with preparing for those games versus Arkansas basketball and SEC basketball and college football?
Here you go. Here's something from it was the women's tournament I did back in March, basketball chart. You got to make sure to tag Andrew Cannell, because he is the one who gave me this years ago. I do contend I have enhanced it greatly. If we were to put them together, but Andrew gave me his. I love this basketball chart. So, I mean, players, I got it. It's kind of categorized player. You got bio stuff over on this side, more statistical stuff in the middle, kind of broken down. So, I mean, it's all there, but go ahead. What were you saying?
So I was asking about what you knew you were in Vermont and you were doing some smaller games, and then you move up to kind of the college stuff and the college basketball and the college football. I'm sure that's got to be drastically different in terms of what you're getting from the coaches, what you're getting from the teams. What's the difference in preparing for that? And I asked this to Kevin Brown many, many moons ago on his episode. What is the trick to making sure you get the right info for a high school game, a smaller college game where it's not always readily available?
I'll just reference something quickly from, from last summer. Like, I remember talking to my good friend Anish Shroff last summer, and we were just, for whatever reason, we kind of went down the rabbit hole. We were just talking football and about games and prep. And I started asking him a couple questions, and like he elaborated on just some great techniques or notes that I was like, you know what? I haven't really even looked at it through that lens before. Or I was like, that's a good point. Like, I didn't ask, who's the emergency or like what sort of formations do you like to run in the red zone, or who's like, there were just some things where I even said to myself as recent as a year ago, where I was like, you know what, these are really helpful. So I reference that to say, I don't know if there's not much of, like, you just have to keep finding the ways to evolve. I mean, if you're naturally curious, you'll find the ways to like naturally grow your prep or maybe enhance the way you do things. So you're right. So your product can be taken to another level year after year. But the tape I sent to Chris Farrow, for example, was very similar to, let's say, in a sense, to what you're asking about when it comes to high school compared to other things. This was a Division II basketball game, like single camera. And yeah, it's like hard to get some information, but I mean, don't be shy. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, if you've got things you're trying to unearth, ask it. Maybe don't be so self-conscious about what I can or what I should, what I can ask, what I should ask, so on and so forth. The high school thing, I mean, I believe this. You can call high school games. You can call anything, because you're right. You do need to do more work. I think the effort level has to be higher, no question, because there is no sports information department. You've got to ask. You've got to. It kind of sharpens your ability to be a journalist and a reporter as well. I mean, you've got to ask some of the things that you would be handed to in a packet that you're gonna have to get from the coach, or you're gonna have to get from somebody around that program, the athletic director, so on and so forth. So I'll look at it this way. I think just whether we're consuming a high school game or a college game, I think you're consuming it as a fan or as a viewer the same way. It's a basketball game. It's a football event. So as long as you kind of look at it from that standpoint, don't be afraid to, ask the questions that you need to ask. I mean, ask them directly, like, who is the backup quarterback? Who is the third string? I mean, sometimes it's tough to get two deeps for a high school football game, as you may know. So, like, you've got to ask, Coach, who else is going to be rotated in? Who else can we see? We want to make sure we're telling the story appropriately. We want to make sure we're serving the viewer and serving the listener. So, and I think they'll understand that, no question.
Last couple of questions, and then I know you got to get out of here pretty soon. What is the one thing that you have to have for a broadcast? You can be missing everything else. What is the one thing that you have to have? And we've had some pretty good answers,
prep,
both broadcast related and non-broadcast related.
Well, number one, pronunciations, man. Like, I don't care what it is, who it is. I'm getting every single pronunciation. I don't know if that is what you're looking for there, but in like terms of prep, that is a no-brainer. That is something that is in the back of my mind. There's no game where we hang up with it and I'm like, oh, I forgot the pronunciation thing that is a given. I just always thought that how could that not be the most fundamental thing that we do? I mean, we're there to, we're there to share the story of this team. I mean, how could you be? I almost think it's somewhat disrespectful. You've got viewers, you've got families. So if that's what you're asking, that's the first thing that popped into my mind. Otherwise, I mean, it's got to be hey, nice. You got to have a nice maybe tie, pocket square combination going on. For the non-broadcast stuff, make sure you got a nice little combination going there.
Do you dress yourself, or do you get a stylist? Do you get style tips from the ESPN people?
No, that is me. And so maybe I'll take some credit. I don't know of anybody who has a stylist. If someone does, then maybe I need to get that information. But yeah, I trust my sense of style. Otherwise, I mean, I'm just trying to think of some other things. I definitely don't. I don't need I don't do like a cup of tea, or it's got to be this. It's got to be. I don't think I have anything specific from that standpoint. Yeah, I mean, make sure have some halls ready to go. Sometimes you have some. We're like players too. I feel like to a certain, because we cover sports, and like may have a good show or a good week, and it's like I may eat that. Maybe I'll eat the same thing I ate the day the leading up to that. I fall victim to being childish like that sometimes.
So I'll admit, when we were down in Williamsport, ESPN had a specific person that was there to dress us. It wasn't a stylist, but they had, I think it was an intern that was specifically in charge of making sure we were wearing the right things on air. And of course you have the whole makeup and everything, but we got the VIP treatment down there.
Yeah, there's a lot of polos too. I've got about 18 ESPN polos in my closet. So, sometimes you're like trying to match with, was it this one? Was it that one? Okay, we're doing the blue now. Yeah, I bet there's a lot to coordinate.
I think that was the biggest disappointment of our entire trip down there, is that we wore Little League World Series polos and not ESPN polos. So I never got the iconic, I guess it's lighter blue now, but the older ones used to be like navy blue with the white ESPN. It was always my dream to go on the air wearing one of those, and maybe one day it'll happen.
Well, you've got a little leg to stand on. It sounds like this event you're talking about. Maybe you email somebody, hey, do you mind if I get one of those? That's some nice swag to wear around, wherever you are.
Yeah, I was joking with my guy Ian Nicholas, who ended up doing the same thing this year, the kids cast with ESPN. They gave them ESPN polos, so he has the ESPN polo. I never got it, and so that's always something I like to hold over his head. All right, let's move along. So, who is a broadcaster that you've always wanted to meet, can be dead or alive?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've actually, this would be one, and we have communicated. We've talked on the phone a couple times. We have we've emailed. I think from from a sports standpoint, Mike Breen. No question. We've never met in person because I mean, Mike to me embodies what it means to be just a good person. He is forget about quality broadcaster. I mean, he's a great person. He embodies just true professionalism. He has a love for what he does. I mean, like we're talking a true passion. He's got, a love for everything that he's doing. And he's been and there's a reason why he's been the voice of the NBA finals for 15 plus years now, going on 16 years. So it's obvious. So he would be at the top. Plus I grew up with him in a sense, being at the reins of, I'm from New Jersey and a big Knicks fan, and that, they, for better, for worse, lately for better, which is good. They've definitely just been a big part of, my fandom growing up. And there's a lot that he does that I really respect, the way he carries himself. So that would be one, and as I'm stalling to maybe think of someone almost maybe like outside of the sports broadcasting realm. I feel like a lunch with Howard Stern would be fun. That would be a pretty good one. So, or a drink or something with Howard, that would be a good one. So there you go. There's a couple.
Favorite stadium or arena that you've gotten to broadcast from, and you've definitely been to quite a few. Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, and I guess I hate that my mind went right to this. You'll understand why. I hate to just reference this again, but I did a college basketball game. Chris, this was Farrell. This was years ago. He assigns me a game. It was Pittsburgh and Davidson. So, a good matchup, but just a couple kind of nondescript, and but it was great. It's in Madison Square Garden. I mean, it was in the Garden. It was that I think they're still, they may not, it might have ended. It was called the Empire Classic, and basically just they would take a Saturday in December and do a doubleheader. And man, it was me and Len Elmore, Len and I sitting next to each other. I mean, Len, we're talking about, an icon in the basketball world, especially in that area, someone who did the NCAA tournament. He's a voice we recall from our years as youngsters watching the NCAA tournament, him and Gus. And, we're there courtside. It was just meaningful. Look, my love for hoops and do for what I do more or less now was born going to games with my dad. And I still recall the seats and the vantage point of where we would sit. And he worked in New York, and he would get tickets from friends, and he would ask me, and I was like, absolutely, let's go. So I just that everything about that arena, it means a lot to me. That was just where I think the love was born. It's everything. I mean, it's everything about that place. It's the perfect stage for hoops. It feels like theater. It's the stage, it's the stars, it's the bravado, it's the sometimes unfortunate moxie, if you will, the stars that align, the celebrities that align the court, the rafters, the lighting, everything. Look, you can make your jokes about the Knicks, sure, yeah, they've had some rough years, but hey, made the playoffs last year, so everybody can hang with that one for a little bit. And everything about that arena meant a lot to me. It was just a place that, again, you kind of fall in love with it. So being able to sit there courtside, and man, you're kind of walking around, you're looking around. That was a moment that still feels very, very special, no doubt about it.
Last question I get everybody out on. What is your advice to younger kids that want to get into the industry and want to start doing this?
I mean, fall in love. Just follow your passion, I guess. I mean, it's like anything. You can't. I think if you want to if you want to commit to something, you've got to do it wholeheartedly. You've got to go all in, if you will. So, keep a notebook next to the TV. Write some phrases down that you like. I mean, you've got to kind of fall in love with the games. Fall in love with it. I think that is critical, especially as a young age, and you're kind of growing and everything like that. I think that's critical. Is you got to be fully committed to this. And there's a lot. I think it's, our industry and what we do. It's a lot of hours. It's a lot of research. It's a lot of preparation. I think it's quite a commitment. There's travel as well. Obviously, less so since the pandemic hit, but as we emerge, we'll trend back in that direction. So there's a lot to it, but this is a lot of fun. It really is. So I would think just the key is, and surround yourself with folks and build your network with individuals who you respect, who are accomplished. Get to know them. Do it wholeheartedly. I don't think there's a way to do this kind of half-heartedly. So basically, I would say, maybe kind of following your heart, follow your passion. Don't be afraid to be creative, and just kind of going about it the right way. I think that's fully having your heart in it. And go to school. Kind of take some years to understand. Read about the industry, understand the industry, know the business behind it too. You can't do that overnight, but over time you can. So I think all that's important is just fully investing yourself in it, because this isn't it's not really a side job or your weekend Friday night game. It's a career. So treat it like a career.
If people want to connect with you on social media, see one of your games, where can they do that?
Yes, you can follow Sam Levitz. Oh, no, never mind. Just have fun with it. But no, on Twitter, I'm more of I still pretty much go to Twitter for everything here. I do need to beef up the Instagram profile, perhaps, but it's Kevin T. Fitz. So if anybody wants to follow along, it'd be much appreciated. But yeah, it's just fun. I appreciate the invite. I think when you got a passion about something, it's fun to engage in these conversations. I like talking about the journeys. I like talking about what I've learned, if it can help. So this has been fun.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate the time. I know we kept you a little longer than we were supposed to, but appreciate you jumping on and taking the time.
Thanks, Aiden.